So hi guys, it's the last day of September today. It's cold. I'm on Melvick Beach and if I scan round, it's my wife. I probably see her somewhere behind me there. I don't know if you see her. Yeah, my son. She was going to go surfing, but she got what she calls an ice cream headache, so she came in. So she's just playing about in the white water there with Rohan. Anyway, today I was going to talk about inflammation and how we can use it to understand what's going on in a body, which ultimately leads to being able to overcome inflammatory conditions. So inflammation is a healing process, believe it or not, because every disease is part of a two-phase process. The first part of that process is when we have an emotional conflict, which has got biological significance to it, and the body latches onto that life issue and creates some sort of body adaptive process. And then when the life issue goes into resolution, this is important, the inflammation kicks in. So if you've got a condition like rheumatoid arthritis, okay, or eczema, right? Rheumatoid arthritis is affecting the joints of the body and the connective tissue, and eczema is concerning the epidermis, which is the outer skin, okay? But they're both inflammatory processes, and they can become chronic processes. Most often are chronic processes. So inflammation, the reddening of the skin, for example, in eczema, actually happens when the biological conflict has gone into resolution temporarily. Likewise, with rheumatoid arthritis, the inflammation and the swelling of the joints and the deformity of the joints, it causes deformity of the joints, that is active when the issue, the self-devaluation issue, is gone into temporary healing. So it's really important if you're trying to, because if we want to permanently overcome these conditions and any other inflammatory disorder as well, we have to understand what the body's doing and why it's doing it, and it then gives us the opportunity to resolve a life issue which is driving the whole process. So, and of course, once that life issue is resolved, well, then the condition stops, okay, and you get well. So, really critically important is to understand that inflammation is a sign that your body, or the symptoms on your body, which are being controlled by your psyche, have gone into resolution. If it's a chronic condition, then it means that the resolution is only temporary, and something will be triggering your unconscious mind to go back into conflict activity again, and then it'll go into resolution again, and then conflict activity again, and resolution, and the condition, it can continue a lifetime if it never gets stopped. So inflammation is a sign that the body's gone into healing. When the inflammation flares up, right, you need to stop and take a moment in your time of life, you know, in that day, in that moment, say, right, what has recently changed in my feelings about some life issue? Has some life issue in some way, have I come to terms with it, or have I, or another way, and more often, is that we have removed ourselves from something that reminds our unconscious mind of a conflict which happened some time ago, roughly when the inflammation started. Okay, so when we suffer a trauma, the unconscious mind records elements of that trauma and it stores them permanently. So whenever we enter an environment where our senses, independently of our conscious mind, by the way, we don't need to be consciously aware of it, but if we enter a situation or an environment where our senses are picking up any of these stored memories, which we call tracks in German New Medicine, So if your body, say, pollen, for example. Now, pollen was a protein, probably is. I'm not too terribly sure what it is. It's probably a protein that was present when we would have had a certain type of conflictive shock, and then from then on you have hay fever. So because the pollen is a track to a unresolved conflict. When we smell the pollen, we go conflict active, and then when we remove ourselves from the pollen, say in the evening or whatever, we become inflamed around the eyes, and we start sneezing and hay fever symptoms. Okay, so in fact, hay fever symptoms, I mean, that's inflammatory as well. So pollen was a track, and it's the same with everything else. This is the important thing, that if you have an ongoing rheumatoid arthritis, then it's because your body's constantly being reminded of a trauma that happened maybe 10, 20 years ago. And if you can identify what that trauma is and resolve it, right, come to terms with it, even change your perspective on the issues that were present within that trauma, you can stop your condition, and you can your body will then recover the best it can. Now, with conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, well, there's going to be joint deformity, which doesn't get better. Okay, that's the bad news. But the good news is all the pain and the arthritic swelling and that does get better. And it's the same with eczema, psoriasis as well. Psoriasis is basically two separation conflicts running concurrently in the same brain relays. So again, when you solve one conflict with psoriasis, it turns into eczema, and when you solve the remaining conflict, the skin recovers back to normal. So I think my message today is inflammation is a sign that your psyche feels resolved about an issue. And take a moment, think about if it's something that you're doing with your mind, if it's a place or a person, or I know it can be many things, but just take a moment, think, right, what's changed? Is anything resolved in me that's brought this inflammation on today? And if you cannot think of anything, then think about when the inflammation first started in your life. And that will give you a good pointer in the area of the time of your life when the conflict happened, which is causing it, which is continuing to drive it. So I hope this is of help to you. There's a lot more to it, obviously, but that is a good start to know that your body creates symptoms, and very often within the case of inflammation, the symptom is a healing conflict. It's a healing symptom of a conflict. The reason why it becomes chronic is because the conflict gets reactivated again and again and again, and then goes into healing again and again and again. But nevertheless, it gives us a clue as to how to understand what is causing our problems. Because, and I think this is probably the most important thing, is that understanding gives us choice and gives us options and gives us the power to make changes to overcome health conditions. And the opposite of understanding is not knowing, right? Ignorance, or just being lost in fear of a symptom, which makes us unable to be proactive and unable to sort ourselves out. And that logic goes with every disease, right? It goes from everything from cancer right down to candida, right? And everything in between. If you understand what and why your body's doing it, and when in life it started and what was going on, it then puts you in a place of being able to, the very least you can do is understand. And that in itself, I've seen with loads and loads of people I've helped, right? Even just completely understanding why their body is constantly going like a big rash on the inside of your leg, for example. Why is this happening? And then when you understand why it's happened, and you can piece it into a moment in your life, and you can think, yeah, right, yeah, I really was worried about such and such event or such and such issue. Well, then when you change your perspective on that, the symptom, the very least it'll do is reduce significantly. If you do a good job, the symptom will go away completely. So that's my my tip for today. 30th of September at Melvick Beach. Arthritis. Treat it as a sign, a message from your body, and use it to help you unpick or discover the reasons why you got it, and then it empowers you to fix it. I'm offering free half-hour consultations. If you want to know more, just get in touch. I'll tell you everything that I know about your condition, and I'll try and empower you the best I can to get well. And if you want to book a session, like if you want to continue on with me, well, that's great too. I take every client case extremely seriously, and I do my very, very best to help everyone. Okay, so I hope that will be of help to somebody, and we'll see you next time.